Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, just a comment. The last quarter, obviously, looks like it's been down a little bit there, and obviously the conditions have been pretty challenging over the last couple of months. But I think one thing that I wanted to bring the attention of it was the fact that this council is very heavily focused on delivering land to market, obviously through Keswick, and we are looking to propel that development forward. And during that particular financial year, there could potentially have been another 50-odd blocks that would have been developed in that financial year, made available for housing, but the focus wasn't there on that previous council to deliver. So I think maybe if that project was expedited by the previous council, it may well have settled in that year, led to further development, and we could have added to those numbers. So whereas looking at the previous 2021 financial year, I believe that was the last of the previous development of the council, of the previous Keswick land settled in that land year, and would have led to development of housing and added to those numbers. So I'm happy to see a bit of a spike in 2023 as council contributes to the land and hopefully to development.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any other questions or debate, councillors? Once these Keswick blocks come online after their rain delays, it should be like a volcano going off in development in Dubbo. Let's put that. All those in favour? Against? I declare the motion carried. We now have two confidential items, and as such, under Section 10A of the Local Government Act, the next item, being items IPEC 22/31 and IPEC 22/32, have been identified as likely to be discussed in a closed session of Council pursuant to Section 10A 2D1 of the Act. Can I now have someone move us into confidential session to deal with the confidential items, please? Councillor Goff.
Can I suggest the Secretary, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Rather than go to confidential and remove our gallery and turn off our streaming, could I suggest we do the next two committee meetings and come back and do the confidential at the very end?
I don't see why not. Sounds pretty good to me. Do we have to have a vote on that?
You've moved that to defer.
To defer.
You're moving to defer?
I'm moving to defer
Mayor?
to the end of the Corporate Services Committee meeting.
Sounds pretty good. Seconded. Any debate? There being none, all those in favour? Against? I declare that motion carried. Thank you. The time being, you can come back to it. 5:40.
I now open the July 2022 Culture and Community Committee meeting. Item CCC 22/30, leave of absence. The first item of business is apologies. I have received an apology from Councillor Mahon and Councillor Burns. Can I please have someone move the apology for Councillor Mahon and Burns? Councillor Chowdhury, second by Councillor Black. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. Item CCC 22/31, conflicts of interest. There's no conflicts of interest, so we'll move on. Item CCC 22/32, identification of surplus land, recreation and open spaces. Can I have someone move recommendation of the report of the Manager of Recreation and Open Space? Moved by Councillor Wells, second by Councillor Right. I'm dyslexic. Any questions or debate? Councillor Black.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll probably vote against this one. I will vote against this one. I've had a bit of a look through the report, and I've also read the Section 94 Development Contribution Plan, Open Space and Recreation Facility 2016 to 2026 report, and it indicates that Dubbo is going to be by 2026 30 hectares under of recreational park space, and once you start selling off, flogging off, privatising, whatever, repurposing open space, then it's not like really stop. And a few of those little parks, I'd need a little bit more information on those, but I've worked out, I've just added up the figures there, would save $6,048 a year in mowing and upkeep. And we have break that we need to do that, that's what I'm wondering. The answer may be that we are, we may have an awful lot of trouble. The expenditure of Wellington, just general cost shifting from state and federal governments to local government is fairly excessive. Our budget's under fair bit of pressure from that. One thing that we do need though is the amalgamation is the baby of state government enabling me to pony up some more money, especially for fixing Wellington's infrastructure, and then we may not have to look at solutions such as this of selling open space parkland. If there was, it may be used for social or community housing, but we're not sure how it might be used, and that's the thing. If we had if it goes out to the expression of interest, and we're guaranteed that it could be used for social or community housing, and the community agrees, that might be something that I could agree to, but at the moment it's not so sure, so I'll vote against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Any other discussion or debate? Councillor Dickerson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I take on board Councillor Black's comments, and I also had some concerns about it. And again, just some of the components in here about the potential public reaction. There's some comments in there about potential public reaction from the various parcels of land. But in the process of doing this, obviously we have to go out to a full public consultation. So there'll be that full process. So I actually prefer to see this go through its current form, let the public come back through that public consultation process, and obviously there'll be a final decision to be made to actually sell it after that public consultation process. I assume, and through you, Madam Chair, to the CEO, I assume that at the initial public consultation process is a minimum of 28 days, and it talks about the VO submission a further 28 days. I just couldn't see in there the initial public consultation process, but it may be worthwhile going longer than the standard 28 days just to make sure we're getting good community feedback, because if we are selling off a community asset like that, then it gives the opportunity for the community to really have their say. So that's my general comment, but I'd just like that question answered in terms of that public consultation process.
I'll throw that question through to Councillor
Don't promote me.
CEO, Mr. Wood.
So the initial consultation refers to changing the classification of land from community to operational, and because you can't sell community land. So there's a number of gates that you would go to which will be very public and considered by council. So please be assured that before you move to a consideration of sale, so if we chose to sell council land, that would have to come to council. But there's actually a number of steps, decision points before that. I might throw to either Ms Bathingthwaite or Mr Walls in terms of there's a regulated period that you have to have in terms of changing the classification. That also includes a public hearing, and that has to be chaired by an independent. But the days, I think, Stephen, Mr Walls or Ms Bathingthwaite, is, I think it's 28 days is open, and then it is on public display, then it stays open for a longer period as well as part of this classification period. So it's a little bit different to the standard 28 days for public display, then it closes. So it is a very regulated process. Staff would take on board if there's a desire for even greater public consultation, because changing it from community to operational does allow a future decision to sale, but it doesn't mean you have to, if that makes sense. It does allow for more flexible council use.
Thank you, Madam Chair, that's fine. So I'm comfortable with that because there is a further consultation process to go through. So it's not the final decision that we're making as community anyway, but even when we go to council, not the final decision being made.
Any other questions or
Can I
debate?
just ask a question?
Councillor Ivey.
In my mind. So the public consultation that goes out will be whether or not council should change its use from community to operational, or is it broader than that, that says we are considering doing this and what's your feedback on what it might be used for under either alternative?
Mr Wood.
So certainly we would be very open and transparent about what making it, so it wouldn't be just about the decision to operational. What that would allow council to do would be, and it could be disposal of land and sale. So we'll be very clear about the reasons why you would change it to operational. So it will be that bigger message that we'll be consulting on, yes.
And certainly perhaps align with Councillor Black's question, that if it stays as community land, and it's not very well used at present, how could it be better used? Is that the sort of thing which community consultation would give feedback on?
They could, as part of their submissions and putting forward their views. Then council would have the challenge, well, if we lift maintenance service levels, and Ms Bathingthwaite may want to talk about this further, if we lift maintenance service levels here, there is no fat, so we have to cut service levels somewhere else. So there would still, in all likelihood, Ms Bathingthwaite may make their likely service levels. Should we keep them as community land?
just click those periods. So there's minimal maintenance on them at the moment. So it's basically doing bare minimum. But yeah, as Mr. Wood said, if we lift the standard of the park, then there will be that increased operational cost to that asset in the future to maintain it at a higher level. So an increased operational cost for the future use.
Through you, Madam Chair, the document that Councillor Black referenced, which is the contributions plan to stud, does identify, and was drafted a number of years ago. It wouldn't account, for example, the large open space councils may recall from our trip to the Keswick estate, where because of an endangered ecological community, we have an issue there, and we're actually having a large piece of open space that I think has high value, certainly in these small pockets, but that wouldn't be accounted for in that previous documentation. So I guess as an example, we need to update our strategies in that regard, just to pick up on that point of Councillor Blake, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Wright?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of things there. Noting Councillor Black's comments there as well. Look, I have the support going forward in investigating the community's perceived ideas of whether we change into something else. But look, additional open space on the river corridor, north and south, I suppose there are a couple of major projects which will add to that outdoor open space and recreational use of the community. So Regan Park and Police Paddock, I suppose, are those two major areas there that help offset. Look, there's some anecdotal evidence of in a couple of these blocks that we're referring to here of some antisocial behaviour, and I'm guessing that there's residents that will be located nearby that might be pleased to see something else happen to those blocks that might actually deter some of that antisocial behaviour that they're sort of seeing there. And obviously there's opportunities for further housing, whether it be community housing, as Councillor Black mentioned. I think that's something that could also be explored. So yeah, I certainly support some further investigation and consultation with the community.
Any other questions or debate?
Could I just correct something I said before?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I just asked for the council to correct something. We've got a different parcel of land, as you would know. Market Square is Crown land, so we're not the freehold owner of that land. For Crown land, the minimum is 42 days public exhibition period. So I think if we're going up the job lot, we'd do it consistently to avoid confusion. So therefore, we're going to have a minimum of 42 days public exhibition.
Yeah.
No other questions or debate?
Well, just can I...
Councillor Ivey.
See, clarification of what the motion is. What are we voting on?
This report, whether we put it out to public consultation of what we do with these parcels of land.
May I?
Yes.
Strictly speaking, it's the recommendation in the business papers. If you vote yes, that's what you're endorsing. So if
the recommendation being that the disposal of the identified parcels of land be considered by council.
And 2 and 3.
And then the funds generated be, and that Market Square is something different. I think I would side with Councillor Black on that. I don't know whether does that encapsulate what we've just been talking about? I don't know, do we?
Is that a question, Councillor Ivey?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Right. CEO, Mr. Woods.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we can't move away from our regulatory obligations in terms of consultation. So you are considering it, you're moving it forward. So this is to take it forward essentially to the community. So now you've heard the commitment verbally that we've got to do two of these parcels as 42 days. We've got to do others for 28 days and keep them open. So you've heard the commitment, we'll do public exhibition for 42 days. So you don't have to tell us how to consult because we have to. There is no decision to sell land at this point in time where I guess what we're asking for is to start that step, and that first step is community consultation.
And so the thing that goes out to the community consultation would say, council is considering selling these parcels of land or disposing of them, and as part of that we need to consult with the community. Please give us feedback on the following.
Yep.
Any other questions or debate? My comment is I just want to hear what community wants. Okay. All those in favour? All those against? I declare the motion carried. There are no further items for consideration of the Culture and Community Committee, and I declare the meeting closed at the time being 5:53 p.m.
I declare open the July 2022 Corporate Services Committee meeting. First item on the agenda is CSC 22/29, leave of absence. I have a leave of absence request for Councillor Mann and Councillor Burns. Councillor, move that way, please. Thank you, Councillor Black, seconded by Councillor Etheridge. Any discussion or debate? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item, any conflict of interest, CSC 22/30. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare, councillors? Being none, I move on to the next item. CSC 22/31, investments under section 625. Can I have someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Ivey, seconded by Councillor Goff. Discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Shattery.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have one question. In this report is showing 30th June 2022. There are the face value, investment of face value is a bit lower than expected. If I can get some clarification.
Certainly. Thank you, Councillor Shattery. Through you, Mr Wood, to Mr Frost.
Please.
Yes, that difference relates to the bonds that we hold. We have interest-bearing investments, and we also have bonds. Because of the sort of happenstances going on in the broader economic environment at the moment, the value of those bonds, the face value of those bonds, has decreased. But Council's approach with how we manage our bonds and we hold them till they mature, and at that time we receive the full face value. So as they mature and we cash them out, then we get the full face value. So it's just an anomaly that we're seeing simply because there's been some decreases in the bond value. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Shattery. Anything further, Councillor Shattery, on that? Councillor Shattery, that's nothing else on that?
No.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ivey.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I find that information useful and good, the fact that it outlines what our portfolio is of $235 million, which is obviously no mean amount of money. What I would like, though, perhaps in future, if we could just get some information on the movement of those funds. So the sort of thing I was thinking of would be the same period this time last year, what the amount was, and what the movements have been through the year by way of redemptions, by way of contributions, by way of change in values of some of the individual investments. So if that could be done relatively easily, I think it might provide councillors with a little bit more information about the state of play with our fixed investments.
Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Mr Frost has taken that on board. Yep. Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Just a comment, really. Look, whilst I'm probably a bit of a mixed mood here, because I also excited about the fact that some of our investment returns over the next 12 months will increase with interest rates increasing. So I look forward to seeing a bit of extra money come through in interest. It probably concerns me a little bit the rising cost of inflation diminishing the buying power of that money that's sitting in the bank. So I guess I'd be curious to see how that plays out over the next couple of years as inflation challenges our balance sheet there.
I think many people will be curious about how that plays out, Councillor Wright. Thank you for your comments. Any further questions or debate, councillors? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item is CSC 22/32, Local Government New South Wales 2022 Annual Conference. Councillor Wright, I think you've got an alternative motion.
I do, Mr Chair, thank you. The alternative motion being that, one, that Councillors S. Chowdhury, B. Etheridge and Wright be selected alongside the Mayor to act as voting delegates at the Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference 2022. And two, that the nominated delegates represent Council at the Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference 2022. And three, that Councillor Jess Goff attend as a non-voting councillor at the Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference 2022.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wright. Can I have someone second that, please? Thank you, Councillor Shattery. Do you wish to speak to that, Councillor Wright?
Well, thank you, Mr Chair. Look, I'm actually a bit excited to go along to this, obviously being a new councillor, and to attend a conference which is likely to be attended by several hundred, I believe, rather experienced councillors. So certainly to rub shoulders with a few of those and network and ask some questions and walk away with some learnings. I'm actually pretty excited to go along. So yeah, it's good to have that opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And councillors have heard me say before that as many people as can get away for that time. I think it's worthwhile. You have discussions with councillors from the rest of the state. The staff don't like it when we come back with all these ideas from the rest of the state, but I think it is a good chance to learn, especially for new councillors, to get some ideas and just have discussions with other councillors. So well done, Councillor Wright. Any other questions or debate on the motion, councillors? No, there being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item is CSE 22/33, the quarterly report on documents executed under power of attorney. Can someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Goff, seconded by Councillor Black. Any discussion or debate? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. The next item, CSE 22/34. Someone move that motion, please. Thank you, Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Ivey. Discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Wells.
It's just in terms of the committees that have that on the list at the moment, I note that there has been some conversation and interest in the community around the disability committee that is not appearing on this list, and I would recommend that we reconsider.
So, Councillor Wells, are you moving an amendment to the motion? Or would you prefer for you to maybe lodge a notice of motion next week for the council meeting in 2 weeks' time? Okay, right, that's fine. And not to stop anyone else can move an amendment as well, but if you're comfortable with that, that's kind of flagging the rest of councillors that there's some action happening on that. Yeah. Right, thank you, Councillor Wells. Councillor Chowdhury.
I would like to thank you, the community. I think a lot of people put their name forward for these committees. I think it will be really great to see that a community coming forward and working with the council and help us to make some decision making, and we can take the council in the right direction. And also, agree with Councillor Wells. We need to add that disability committee because of I received few phone calls, and there was a great interest in the community to see that committee to add. I'll completely support your comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. Any further questions or debate? Councillor Ivey, then Councillor Wright.
Yes, I'd support the comments so far, particularly returning just to the motion about the existing committees. I think that to have a revised terms of reference where there is the ability to expand the membership of that committee more in line with the interest that we got through nominations. It seems silly to go out to the community and ask for their input into an area of operation which affects them, and then refuse entry, if you like, to the committee for some of those people who put their name forward. I think where we can gender that interest, and we have, it would make a lot of sense for those community-based committees dealing with those community issues to be expanded to include those that want to go on the committee. I presume too, with that, perhaps the disability committee would fall under that same category. But I commend I'm certainly very much in favour of the motion that's there at present.
Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Councillor Wright.
So they're just echoing Councillor Ivey's comments, really. I know those committees were oversubscribed with some quality nominations, and so it was a shame to actually have to pick and choose and drop a couple of those out based on that previous terms of reference. So, I'd absolutely be supporting the motion to proceed as it is.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any further councillors? Okay, there being nothing else, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. That's no further items for consideration of the Corporate Services Committee. I declare the meeting closed at 6:03 p.m. and note that Councillor Black will now come back and do will finish off his committee with the confidential components.
I'll reopen the Infrastructure Planning and Environment Committee meeting at 6:04 p.m. Confidential items, there's two of them. Under Section 10A of the Local Government Act, the next item being items IPEC 22/31 and IPEC 22/32 have been identified as likely to be discussed in a closed session of Council pursuant to Section 10A2D1 of the Act. Can I now have someone move us in the confidential session to deal with the confidential items, please? Moved Councillor Chowdhury, seconded Councillor Etheridge. Thank you. We have no applications from members of the public to make their representations regarding whether the meeting should be closed to the public. Do any members of the public in the public gallery? Quite empty. have any comments to make regarding the proposal to hear items IPEC 22/31, IPEC 22/32 in a closed session of council? No. Any questions or debate, councillors? There being none, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? I declare the motion carried. We'll move into closed session, the time being 6:04 p.m. The committee returned to open session at 6:14 p.m. Welcome back. I now ask the Manager Governance and Internal Control to read the resolutions of the closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Resolution for IPEC 2231 Social Housing Development Scheme Draft Planning Agreement. The committee recommended 1. That Council notes the current status and discussions with the proponent of the Forest Glen Solar Farm development in respect to a voluntary planning agreement. 2. That a draft voluntary planning agreement be prepared in accordance with the terms identified in this report. 3. If a voluntary planning agreement cannot be successfully negotiated with the proponent, that a further report be provided for the consideration of Council. 4. That the draft voluntary planning agreement be placed on public display in accordance with the provisions of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979. And 5. That following the conclusion of the public exhibition period, a further report be prepared for the consideration of Council, including any submissions received. For item IPEC 2232, tender for the Northern Regular Passenger Transport Apron Extension. Committee recommended 1. That Council accept the tender submitted for the Northern Regular Passenger Transport Apron Extension from Aitken Civil Engineering in the sum of $1,607,182 for the separable Part A. 2. That all documentation in relation to this matter remain confidential to Council. 3. That all documentation in relation to this matter be signed under the common seal of Council.
Thank you very much for that. There are no further items for consideration of the Infrastructure Planning and Environment Committee, and I declare the meeting closed, the time being 6:16 p.m. Please stop the web streaming.